So, welcome back to week 2. We're going to be talking about communication today, but I want to welcome you all back. Thank you for watching, if you're watching this later, and thank you for joining. So last week in our Building Confidence session, we talked a lot about these things. So we talked about homework at the end of the session. I'm just hoping that this week you're able to make time to kind of think, talk, and debrief about the ways that you were parented. A lot of times especially when we're under stress, but just sometimes when, we're in a situation where we don't know what else to do, our child is displaying challenging behaviors, and we often revert back to the way that we were parented. So sometimes this is fine and it's not a big deal. But other times maybe that's something that we don't want to do, that we remember from our own childhoods, that we didn't like, necessarily the way maybe our parents did certain things, and they certainly did the best that they could. But if you wanted to change some of those parenting styles, just thinking and talking about what those were and how those kind of affected you and how you were able to kind of view yourself and become yourself through the ways that you interacted with your parents. I think the first step is really acknowledging and thinking about those things, and thinking about the ways in which they come out in your own parenting. Maybe that's something you've never thought about. So it's good to kind of start that conversation. And then writing down 3 ways you can positively notice your child. So putting that on your fridge to remind yourself, put it on your mirror, put it around somewhere that you'll see, put it in your phone and your notes, reminders, to kind of remind yourself just to notice what your child does well. So there's probably 100 things throughout the day that he or she does really well, and the times and the activities that they're able to be on task and that they're enjoying. So I think during those times, really focusing your attention there. If you know that they really love to help you, dry dishes or fold laundry or those things that kids really like to do, be really happy about that and acknowledging them for those things. Practicing a few of the activity cards. So just pre-planning some time to use them, your day best and when you might be able to carve out 5 to 10 minutes. If you can't do it every day, what days you might have a little bit more time. And those activity cards from last week and this week are in the email that I sent before the session. So there's a link in there to click on. You can see those cards, and let me know if you're unable to or you need some help with that. And then finally, planning 5 to 10 minutes in your day to kind of pay that one-on-one attention to your child. The best opportunity to do that is when they are doing the right thing, and that could just mean we're all sitting at the dinner table and they're eating, or they're, normally maybe they have a hard time eating quietly, or they have a hard time eating next to their sibling and not kind of getting into it. And you notice that today, for those 5 minutes at the beginning of the meal, they were doing really well with their brother or sister, and kind of focusing your attention there and providing that one-on-one connection in times when that they're kind of ready for it. It could be before bed or after bath and they're a little bit more calm. So just kind of being intentional about what that time, when you're choosing to spend that one-on-one time. And that can be extra special if you have more than one child, because lives are crazy. So it's hard to provide that one-on-one connection with each child. Definitely. So today we're going to be talking about communication, and you'll kind of notice that throughout the lessons that there's a lot of common themes. So this one-on-one connecting, this really cultivating that personal relationship with your child is just going to help you through all of the different things that we talk about. It helps you with communication. It helps you with cooperation. It helps to build your child's confidence. So all of these things really are about you focusing that intentional time on creating a positive relationship with your child. And that's kind of what all of these topics really center around and talk a lot about. So you'll hear me kind of say a lot of similar things. So I wanted to open with this research study, which is pretty well known. It's by Hart and Risley, and it's called the 30 million word gap. You can Google this if you are a research buff or you just like to know be in the know. This is a very famous study that you can, even if you can't get the actual article, sometimes they make you pay for those. I'm sure you can find a dozen synopsis of the article online, because it's pretty well known. So really what happened in this research study was that 42 families who had children from age 7 months to 3 years were enrolled, and they had researchers go out to their homes and sit there for, I don't know how long, a few hours. Maybe it was over the course of several weeks. I'm not sure what the time frame was, but they sat in their homes and they actually simply counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the interactions between parent and child. So they called them utterances. So in terms of language, so communication. So mom says something, child says something, dad says something, child says something, child says something, mom says something. They're literally counting them. And then they also kind of noted the quality of those interactions. So were they negative or positive? Was mom and dad, being very directive and saying, do this, don't do this? Or was it a conversation? Were they talking about their day? Was it more of, just kind of this positive interaction as opposed to giving direction? What they found was there were significant differences at age 3, and then they followed up with these families and children at 3rd grade, and there were still significant differences. In terms of, the reason they call this the 30 million word gap, in terms of the amount of vocabulary that the child had. So by age 3, there was a 30 million word gap between children who were on the lowest end of the spectrum in terms of interaction. So they're not interacting very much with parents or adults in the house. And the children who were at the top of the spectrum, who were interacting very frequently and often with the adults in their house. So the reason I share this, there's a couple of reasons, but one is I want you to know the kind of power that you have in this interaction with your child. So it's very powerful, how often you are communicating with your child. So sometimes, I know that's hard. I know it's a challenge when we're so busy to kind of maintain that communication. We think, oh, my child's occupied. I'm going to go run and do the 100 things that are on my to-do list. But I really encourage you to just be more mindful and kind of intentional about creating that conversation with your child. And it could be about anything. So notice, in this research, they didn't say the parents were talking about shapes and numbers and colors and all those things. I think sometimes parents, again, with good intentions, want to have those types of conversations with the idea that, well, they're learning and I want them to learn these things. And that's fine. Those conversations are not bad. But I think shifting your perspective a little bit and knowing the importance of just talking and just having an interaction that is not directive. So you're not telling them, do this, don't do that. You're simply saying, hey, look, you really like to play with those blocks. What are you building? Kind of talk with them about how they're being imaginative, or talk with them about things that they did during the day. Ask them about, you're getting dinner ready. Ask them questions about it. Oh, do you like to eat vegetables? What are the vegetables that you like to eat? Why don't you like these vegetables? What do they taste like? There's 100 million things, 100 million avenues that you could go down and talk to your child about. Talk to them about the TV characters that they like. Talk to them about what sports they like to play. There's just so many things. So not only when you're doing that, when you're providing that conversation, not only are you building their vocabulary, they're learning words from you, but you're also increasing connection. So they're feeling like mom or dad or whomever is interested in what I'm doing, right? Of course, that makes you, even as adults, when someone's making a conversation with you, you feel good. You feel, oh, they're interested in what I'm doing. And then also it's going to help them. It showed in this study that, especially the follow-up for 3rd grade, it helps them academically. Simply because, again, children who are connected well with parents, they just have better social emotional skills. They're better regulated. They're better able to sit in the classroom and be patient, than a child who's kind of lacked those interactions. So there's a lot of power in you interacting with your child about anything, and just being kind of more consistent about it, and making sure that that's more of a conversation than a direction. So you're really fostering that back and forth as opposed to you kind of saying what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing. So I really want you to kind of keep that in mind. So checkup A, this is in the paperwork that was sent to you, and that's on page 13. I don't believe it has a number at the top, but it's it says week 1 communication at the top. So this is just kind of what you already know about your child. I won't go through everything here. This, I think, is a good one to kind of do on your own or with your partner. It's a great way to check in about where your child is now. So just some things, what are your child's strengths? What do they find challenging? Do you know if there's any differences between home and school? So maybe sometimes, I know actually, ironically, growing up as a kid, I was like terrible at home. I was horrible. I was such a terror. And at school, I was the best. I mean, I was really well behaved. So my teachers would tell my parents, oh, she's so great at school. And they were like, what? And they thought she was crazy. But anyway, your child can have different behaviors, between home and school. So if that's true for you, then kind of just taking note of that. And then it just goes through and asks you to describe your child. So their activity level, their ability to follow directions, ability to cooperate, and what their friendships patterns are like. So are they really social? They can make friends with anyone, or do they, kind of play on their own and do their own thing? And then it goes on to talk about how does your child communicate. So just thinking about that, there's various ways to communicate. It's not just through talking. So maybe your child is more comfortable drawing a picture for you, or maybe when they're feeling shy and they're meeting new people, that's how they communicate. Or if they just really love rough and tumble play. These are all ways that we connect with other people and communicate. So it doesn't just have to be verbally. And then how do they like to learn? It just kind of gives you some check boxes to think about those things. And it might be a good idea to talk about it with your partner or whoever else is in the house, just to see if you kind of have different ideas about that. Maybe you see them at different times of the day, or you see them in different contexts, and you might think differently about them. So today, our goal is to establish a routine and give your child a special time to share information. This says about preschool activities. Again, this is from a curriculum that dealt with teachers in preschools. So I'm really trying to focus on that special time and sharing information about kind of anything and everything. School as well, but just other things that are happening in your lives. And then we'll go over in a little bit later in the lesson the activity cards and the parent tip cards, just a couple of them, and see if any of those would work for you this week. So I'm going to show you a quick video example. This is from the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. They have a couple other videos, you can see them on the side there, that are really great. And they're just kind of short and quick. And so if you wanted to Google those and check some of those other ones out.
Positive communication with our children helps them develop in a healthy way and strengthens our bond with them.
Parents can really kind of tune into what their kids are saying to kind of build those communication skills, help their children build language skills by saying, what did you say, and repeating back what the kids said and reflecting on that emotion that kids are expressing.
There are 4 steps for communicating positively with your child. Step 1, praise. Use praise to help your child know what you'd like them to do. Be clear and specific with your praise. Instead of good job, say, good job putting away your toys.
Great job putting your toys away, Jenny.
It's very, very important as a parent to be conscious as much as possible of what your kids are doing, but you're checking in on them enough that there's opportunities to acknowledge what they're doing, that it's good.
Step 2, imitation. You can copy or imitate the things your child is doing that you want them to keep doing. This shows your child that you are paying attention to them and interested in what they are doing. When copying and imitating, make sure you do the things the way your child does. Do not try to do things better or faster than your child.
Then they see that you've recognized that they're doing something that you're also doing. Wow, mommy likes that. Mommy likes to play with my dolls too, so that must be something good that I'm doing. I'm going to do that again in the future.
Step 3, description. Describing or talking about what your child is doing while they play shows your child you are noticing their good behavior. You can act like a sportscaster who is telling people what is happening in a game. You are putting the red block on the green block and making a tall tower. Step 4. Active listening. Giving your child your full attention when you are playing and talking with them can help build your relationship. At least once a day, try to really focus on being with your child. Try to decrease distractions like cell phones so you can give her your full attention. One way to actively listen is to talk about what your child is doing or to repeat what your child says. You can also add more detail to encourage them to talk to you more. For example, your child may say, "I colored it." But with active listening, you may add to that and say, "Yes, you colored her dress blue and red." Active listening can also help children name their feelings. For example, if your child is crying and says she's not happy, you may say, "You seem unhappy and sad." Playtime is a great time to practice praise, imitation, description, and active listening. You can also use these skills anytime you are with your child. At dinner, in the car, and when giving a bath.
So just those 4 things that they kind of touched on in the video I wanted to elaborate on a little bit. So they talked about praise when we talked about that last week with building confidence. So again, these 2 topics kind of align pretty well because communicating more is connecting more, and that builds your child's confidence and the connection that you have with them. So noticing those positive things that they're doing throughout the day. Imitating. So playing with your child. I know that can feel weird sometimes, and maybe that wasn't done for you growing up. I'm trying to think, like, my parents really didn't sit on the floor and play with me much that I can recall. I mean, I had a sister, but so that's actually a good time to connect too, and also builds confidence. So like they were saying in the video, it shows mom, likes what I'm doing, dad likes what I'm doing, they're interested in what I'm doing. And it can also just build that connection and be something you can do with those 5 or 10 minutes that you're spending together. And also, I think in that time, that imitating time, like letting your child take the lead. So that builds their confidence too. If you're playing with blocks or dolls or something, kind of going for a short period of time during the day, because so much as adults we're telling kids what to do, and we're asking them to do X, Y, Z for us. And we rarely kind of get into their world and let them take the lead. So just try that out for maybe 20, 30 minutes and see how it goes. Describing. So they talked about like being a sportscaster, and that sounds strange, but actually, like in a lot of early childhood settings, that does go on a lot, and primarily because it builds language. We know that it builds language. Research says that it builds language. So when your child's just in the ages of 2 to 5 and they're learning language, they're still learning how to put sentences together. It's helpful for them to hear you repeat things, or for you to kind of narrate what they're doing. I'm not suggesting you do this all day long. You would look kind of strange, but again, during that playtime or that half an hour a day or whatever, you're able to kind of describe to them what they're doing. So, you're putting the block on top of your doll. What are you trying to do with that? Or, you're putting the red Lego on top of the yellow Lego. You're using lots of colors, so you can kind of make it conversational. It doesn't have to be that creepy or weird. And then active listening. So that's just kind of being with. So really paying attention and listening to what your child is saying. And again, that goes along with taking their lead. That's not done so often. So often we're telling kids, again, what to do, and we're not really listening to what they have to say. We have very busy lives, and so it's natural for us to kind of go into that tendency, but just kind of being intentional and thinking about actively listening. And by doing that, you're teaching them how to listen too. You're kind of modeling for them what you want. So on the next page, on page 16, at the top, it says Secrets of Success. And it really points out on, meeting at a regular time or thinking about a time in the day that's convenient for you to meet. I know we talked about this last week too, so carving out those 5 or 10 minutes to have that quality conversation. And I don't want you to think, oh gosh, now I have to have like building confidence 5 minutes, and I have to make 5 minutes to communicate, and I have to make 5 minutes to, I don't have all this time. I mean, please, by all means, like combine these things. When you're taking those 5 or 10 minutes, you're doing both. By taking those 5 or 10 minutes, you are building confidence. And by communicating during those 10 minutes, you're communicating. You're building, communication skills. So I'm trying to make this as easy as I can for you. I know, everyone's very busy, so I don't want you to think you have 10 times throughout the day you got to figure out how to do this. Finding a comfortable place and helps you to kind of relax and helps your child to relax. Maybe that's right before bed. Maybe that's right when they wake up in the morning. Maybe that's when everyone gets home from their day and you have some time before dinner. I don't know what that is for your family, but, kind of thinking about when you can intentionally make that time. If your child's attending preschool and you pick them up, I think a great thing to do is to ask the teacher what happened that day. Oftentimes teachers kind of tell you anyway, or maybe you do this anyway, but if you're not already doing it, teachers would love to share with you the activities that they're doing throughout the day. Even what was snack like today, who did they play with today, who's their favorite friend in class. Your child's teacher knows all these things. They're with your child for a long time throughout the day, so they really do know them, and they know them in that school environment. So I think it's interesting to kind of find out those things from your child's teacher. And those are things you can bring up with your child at home and get more feedback and more conversation going. Another thing is look around the classroom, notice drawings or posters or toys when you drop off or pick up. Those are things you can ask your child about. Oh, I noticed that they have a rocket ship in the corner, 1 week. What are you guys doing with that? Are you learning about outer space? I noticed you have a big dinosaur picture on the wall. Have you talked about dinosaurs? So there's lots of things that you can, communicate with your child about. It doesn't just have to be how was your day? Because I'm guessing when you ask that, they say, fine, good, or maybe they don't respond at all. That's a big question for a 3, 4, 5-year-old. That's a big question to say, how was your day? It's kind of vague, and we talked last time about specificity. So being a little more specific with your questions. So what did you eat for snack today? Who did you play with today? What did you build with your blocks today? These are kind of specific questions, and you might be surprised at how much conversation comes out of them. And then the do's or don'ts box. Again, I like those. They're pretty easy. I kind of put them in a larger slide here so we can see them better. So when you're taking that time to communicate, offering your undivided attention. So again, that's being intentional, finding a quiet space, you being calm, you being ready to do this. And if that doesn't happen every day, then so be it. That's fine. Your child will be fine. I don't want you to worry about that. Just making it something that you're doing more often. And if one day is just too nuts and crazy and you can't do it, then, that's life. That's what happens. But just, keeping that in the back of your mind as you want to be present in this moment when you are communicating. And that involves, like being present with an adult. You're making eye contact. You're asking specific questions. You're being aware of your tone. So, an adult's tone of voice can be very scary for a kid. And what tone of voice to use when you want to get your point across, I'm sure, to your kids and to other people. So just, in this time when you are communicating and you're trying to make that connection, just keeping it like a soft tone, a very inviting way of talking to your child. Or reflecting their emotions. So that just increases their emotional vocabulary. When a child is this young, they don't understand all of their emotions. So by you putting words to it, that's helpful. It's helpful, like in the example in the video, saying your child says, I'm not happy, or they're crying. You can reflect that back to them. So saying, you look really sad. I can see your tears. Instead of, oftentimes our reaction is like, oh, you'll be okay. or you're fine, or whatever. By taking that 1 minute and being there with them and kind of talking about their emotions, it helps them to regulate and calm down. And it also increases their vocabulary. They're learning different words about emotions. And then don't. So let's not talk when we're upset or when you're busy. So if you have a lot of stuff going on, it's not a good time to be trying to have this intentional conversation. Interrupting your child. So a lot of, that takes practice. It takes practice really to listen to your child. I know that it sometimes isn't easy. Sometimes it's hard for them to get a sentence out. Sometimes they say things that don't make sense. and sometimes as adults, like, we just don't have patience for that. They start saying something silly off the wall, telling a story, and depending on your mood, maybe you're just not feeling it. And you're like, I can't play right now. And that's okay. Just be conscious of that and choose another time when it's okay for you to be playful with them and to kind of have a conversation that engages them, and you're listening and taking their lead. And then trying to avoid over-explaining. So, gosh, as adults, we use so many words, and we use a lot of big words and complex concepts, and we understand them, and our kids don't. Our kids really don't understand a lot of complex things. So sometimes, when I've been in classrooms or seen teachers, like, if a child takes a toy or they're trying to reprimand them and they're just talking about, what is it that you did wrong? And I mean, it's not that that's a bad thing to say or talk about, but when there's a lot of talking and a lot of words and concepts, the child's probably not going to take in most of that. So you want to be kind of simple in your language. You kind of want to mirror, again, the way that they speak and the words that they're using, those kind of simpler words and less complex sentences. And then finally, this is on the don't list, correct how your child does something. So this is also sometimes really hard. I think we talked about this last week too. Your child's drawing a picture and it looks crazy, or some parents aren't into the dirty thing, like they don't like Play-Doh, they don't like mud, and that's up to you whether you're welcoming that in your house or not. But you don't want to be telling them how to do everything, or taking the marker away from them and saying, show me, I'll show you how to do it. They should be able to feel safe expressing themselves. So a great example of this, I'm going to read you a scenario. This is done as like a role play, but since we're in this venue of video chatting, I'll just read you the scenarios. So I want you to picture in your mind, in these wonderful pictures I've presented here for you. This is scene 1, okay? So Kenny and his mom are playing with blocks and wild animals on the floor. Kenny picks up a snake and says, "Roar!" "That's a snake, not a lion," Mom says. "What does a snake say?" Kenny says, "My snake roars. See? Roar." Mom says, "No, that isn't right. A snake says hiss, not roar. A lion roars. Here's a lion for you to play with." She picks up a lion and places it in his hand, taking the snake away. Makes the lion walk and says, "Roar," this time with less enthusiasm. Mom says, "That's right, son, you got it. Do you know what a lion's baby is called?" Kenny says, "Baby?" Mom says, "No, they're called cubs, lion cubs. How many lions do you have?" Kenny says, "He has 4. He counts 1, 2, 3. Mom says, "No, you missed one. Let's count them again." She takes Kenny's hand and touches the lion with it. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many lions are there? Kenny says, 4. Mom, you be the lion's daddy. Kenny hands her a large tiger. Mom says, "This isn't a lion, Kenny. What is this?" Kenny says, "It's the lion's daddy." Mom says, "No, it's a tiger. What color is the tiger?" Kenny keeps playing and doesn't answer. He turns away from his mom and keeps playing on his own. Mom says, "What color is it?" Kenny responds, "Black and yellow." Mom says, "No, Kenny, it's orange and black. See?" She holds the tiger up to Kenny. He puts down the toys he was playing with and begins kicking and throwing toys. Mom says, "All right, you're done playing." So I just kind of want you to think about that, picturing that in your mind. And then we'll snap to the scene 2, all right? This is scene 2. So same scene, Kenny and Mom are playing on the floor with animals and blocks. Kenny picks up a lion and makes it walk up on the blocks. Mom says, "Oh, you have a lion. That's a big lion. It's a daddy lion because it has a mane." Kenny picks up the lion to look at it. A mane. He points to the lion's mane. That makes the lion go fast. Mom says, "Oh, that lion is moving really fast. He's running. I wonder why he's moving so fast." Kenny says, "He's trying to get to his friend's house." He moves the lion next to the polar bear. Mom says, "Oh, is the polar bear the lion's friend?" Kenny says, "Yes, the snake is his friend too. Remember the snake that roars?" Roar. Mom says, "Yes, I do remember the snake that roars." Kenny says, "His friend the lion taught him how to roar." Mom says, "Wow, he must be a pretty special friend for the lion to teach him how to roar. Look, I see 1, 2, 3 snakes. Did the lion teach them to roar too?" Kenny says, "Yes, he teaches all of his friends how to roar. He taught me how to roar too. Listen, roar." Mom says, "Oh yes, I would love to learn how to roar." So in these two scenarios, scene 1, scene 2, you can kind of see the difference in the quality of communication. So in the first one, Mom's constantly correcting him, right? And she's doing it, I don't want you to think that's like a mean mom, although I did make her look mean, didn't I? But, I think she wants him to know the correct answer. She's concerned about, oh, does he know his colors? Does he know how to count the animals? Does he know that this is a lion, a lion roars and a snake doesn't roar? So the interaction, her intention is good, but she's taking away from that connection. So I kind of want you to think about that. So the child kind of turns away and, of course, isn't as interested in playing with her because she keeps, trying to quiz him while they're playing. Versus this mom who kind of went with it. And she was like, "Oh, yeah, teach me how to roar, a snake that roars. That's cool." So that's kind of the difference in kind of, I think, the way that I'm, inviting you to really interact with your kids and to really communicate them in a way that's on their level. And it just helps them to feel more connected to you. So then check up B, which is on page 17. Yes, 17 in that packet that you were sent. So this one's also a great check-in. So the check-in A was kind of, where's your child now? What's kind of going on with them? And this checkup B is really like how well do you know what's kind of going on with your child, particularly at school. So again, this is from a curriculum that deals with preschool. So if your child's in preschool, just kind of wondering, do I know the new skills that they learned in the past month? Do I know if they have a good time at school? Who do they like to play with? What activity do they like to do the most? Is there anything scary for them throughout the day? Is there anything negative happening? So if you haven't already kind of spoken with your child's teachers about that, it's just a great opportunity to build that relationship with them and to know more about your child at school. And then it just says their activity, so getting more involved again with your child's classroom or your child's teacher or school. I don't know, again, if it doesn't fit your schedule to kind of go in and observe. I know a lot of schools welcome that, so that could be something you could do, or help out on certain days, I'm sure. Maybe that could give you a new perspective on your child too. Again, I don't know if that's something you're able to do. So real quick, I wanted to just look at some of the cards for this week. So these cards kind of encourage you just to share information about your child's day. So again, this is kind of focused more on their preschool day, but really it's anything that's happening throughout the day. And I think this is also a good time to utilize those concept cards. I don't know if you, I know Christy sent them to you, and I'm sure they're posted. But so there's these we have the weekly parent tip and activity cards, and then we also have concept cards, which are like circle, square, there are different colors and different shapes and stuff on there. So I want you to kind of use those. I don't want you to use them as a quizzing tool to be like, what do you know? What don't you know? But more of like a conversation piece. So if you wanted to show them a shape and there's a star shape and like, talk about the stars, or talk about kind of like an I Spy thing, like, oh, we're talking about squares, like point out the squares for me. So not really like a quizzing thing, but more of just a way to start a conversation. And then these are just some more things that you can try. So encourage your child to use phrases to talk about pretend events and past events. So I think a really fun way to do this is if you do have story time or you read consistently, making up a story. I mean, it's just, you'd be amazed at what your kids can come up with. So if you have a favorite book, when you're at the end, you go, okay, what happens next to their favorite characters? Or, just kind of building on that. Talk to your child about an event that you both experienced, going to the park, going to the store, asking them what they liked about it, asking them maybe things that you saw while you were there. I think, at the very end of the sessions, when you have the bookmaking that is in October, that's a really cool activity where you'll be able to have an experience and then write a book and bring it home. So that'll be a great way to kind of increase that conversation. I think helping tell your child what happened. So asking one question at a time. This is one of the things that we talked about, of like the complex questions or complex sentences. So asking one at a time. So instead of asking 3 questions in a row, you're just focusing on one. And then again, those more specific questions. Did you finish building the house with Maria? Did you play with Joey today? Instead of what did you do today? Or how was your day? And then just listening more intently. So these basically just go over the things that we kind of talked about. I think these ones are pretty helpful though. So if you have a chance to use those and go over them, that'd be great. I know we just have one more minute. So the homework for next week. So this is kind of similar to our homework for this week. So making some time, if you haven't already, again, don't feel bad if you just haven't had the time to do it. No problem. You can start this week. You can start tomorrow. You can start at any time. So making those 5 or 10 minutes, getting down on his or her level and listening to them and responding. Writing down 2 or 3 specific questions you can ask your child, whether it's about their school day, it's about going to grandma's house, it's about going to the beach, or thinking of questions that are just kind of being more aware when you are places. So if you do go to the beach, kind of noticing a couple things, like, oh, I noticed he went and was playing in the sand with, someone down there, or he was trying to surf with his cousin today, or whatever, and kind of thinking intentionally, like, I'm going to ask them questions about that later, so you have some things to talk about. And then just talk. So, oh my goodness, I can't, like that research study that we heard about earlier, like, just talk about anything, use words, teach them new words. It can only help them to not only learn vocabulary, but just to learn how to have a conversation. So learn how to take turns when talking is really important. I know sometimes, the idea is that kids are seen and not heard, and that's maybe something you didn't experience. Again, like a lot of conversation with your parent, but it is really good for them just developmentally to be talking. Noticing them doing the right thing. It sounds like you guys are already doing that, so that's great. Just keep on keeping on. And then I think sometimes like talking more to other adults can sometimes help if it's kind of awkward for you to maybe start some intense conversations with your kids or start some regular conversations. So just kind of practicing active listening with other adults in your life, your partner, your siblings, friends. I think that can help.